I guess really most of our Western civilization is built on the notion that if you sin, you must redeem yourself. There must be an atonement made. There must be some sense of justice restored. And I'm wondering, maybe that's the bit of your story that we haven't actually seen yet. So we've seen the apologies, but for example, I'm not really sure what you've done to help cycling since your ban.
I was watching a video this week. It was an interview with Lance Armstrong and the reporter. It was after his, it was more recent than the Oprah interview and the big revelation that, yes, Lance was actually a cheater and a doper. And it was really interesting because here's Lance and he's talking to this guy, and this guy's not holding any punches. He's like, asking him all the hard questions, like, how have you made it right with this person? How have you made it right with Betsy Andreo and Emma O'Reilly and all these people who Lance, when he was still living his lie, he steamrolled these people. He would destroy them rather than be honest with where things were happening and own his stuff. And as he's giving this interview, I almost felt bad for Lance because he was being asked to make restitution for something he couldn't make restitution for. He can't go back and make it so none of that stuff ever happened. And this guy is he's accusing and right. I mean, he was telling the truth. It was the truth. The guy, it was horrible what Lance had done. And I was thinking of another racer who I really like, Tyler Hamilton. He was once Lance's teammate. The guy was a beast. He had this pride of like being able to work so hard and endure pain like nobody else. In fact, I think it was his first Tour de France. He had his first stage. He got in a bad wreck and busted both collarbones, which is an excruciating deal. And heartbroken, obviously, because you work your whole life and dream of you'd be riding on the Tour de France, and here it is day one and you're out. But they looked at it and he had clean brakes, and they're like, if you can deal with a lot of pain, you could ride. And he's like, I'm riding. And he ends up winning that next stage, the next day. So that guy's awesome. But his story was, before he got to that point, was, had always taken pride in doing things right. He knew what right and wrong. He had a good conscience about him, and one day during a particularly hard tour, and kind of knowing what the lines were, but where the top riders, there was an understanding that there was a lot of doping happening and a lot of justification for it. And he had a team doctor come into his room, and he's laying on the bed, and the doctor says, this is for your health, and he gives him a little egg-shaped testosterone pill, and Tyler knew what was right and what was wrong. He knew it was a line he hadn't wanted to cross up to that point, and he makes no justification for it, but he took the pill, and that led to more and more justification to the point where he was heavily involved with Lance Armstrong on his team in doping. And knew the ins and outs of it. He's written a book since, and he talks about laying in bed at night. He's on the top of the world. People think he's a star. He's won a gold medal at the Olympics, and he's laying in bed at night. He's contemplated suicide. He's dealt with depression and anxiety to a huge degree. He lays in bed and looks at the ceiling, and he calls them committee meetings where he talks to himself about the person he's perceived to be, the person he wants to be versus the person he is. And he's got this lie that he's protecting, and that he doesn't feel like he can let go. He's going to take it to his grave, and just that same attitude of I'm tough enough to handle this hell. He'll endure the pain instead of destroying not just his reputation, but people who've trusted him and hurting people around him who've put their faith in him or whatever. He's not going to let the lie go. He's not going to betray other people who are lying like Lance, anyway. That goes on for years, and finally he's called in to a meeting with the anti-doping agency and federal, people with real authority, people who hold guns and real investigators. And he finally, he opens his mouth and the truth comes out, and it just keeps coming out. And he leaves this courthouse that day, having destroyed everything that he'd built, having destroyed his reputation, his whole life, all the stuff he'd worked for, and there it is a lot of work. It is 99% the work that he had put in, but he had made it dirty with the drugs, the blood doping, and the stuff that he had done, the cheat, and everything is gone. The 99% goes out the window with the advantage or whatever. Maybe it's 10% advantage because of the cheating. I don't know, but it's all gone. And he walks out of that courtroom, and he says, I felt more free and happy having just burned down my life than I ever had before. I was finally free. All my secrets and the stuff I'd held were gone. They were lifted off of me. And I have no idea what this guy's religious persuasion is, if he's a Christian or not. It doesn't matter. What he felt was the effect of grace, and the freeing effect of when you can't pay a debt, somebody else taking it for you. I thought of Lance again in that interview, and having an accuser who held this standard of righteousness that Lance didn't meet and couldn't go backwards retroactively and meet. He couldn't make restitution fully for anything he'd done. The time was done. And that was against mortal human people, also broken, also with their own secrets of people they've hurt and moral laws that they've broken. Those are the people Lance had wronged, and we all wrong. We all do bad things to each other. And he's got this accuser guy, and the guy's drilling him, and he can't fix it. He's like, what do you want me to do? I can't. And that's one of Satan's names, is the accuser. He's the person who will tempt us and try to get us to do those things. And it's not just him, it's our own fallen nature. He doesn't need that much help sometimes, I think, to get us to let ourselves down and let other people down against this, what we have written, this moral law, this standard written on our hearts of right and wrong that we all come short of every day. Satan gets us to break it, and then he changes his hat and says, look what you did. You can't fix it. Depression, anxiety, self-hate, cruelty to other people, all the bad things that pour out of that because we don't have a way out. And Jesus, the message of Jesus is he's stood in our place. He frees us. He says, I paid your debt. It's done. And so Satan's got nothing left. That's why I wish, I sit and watch these interviews with Lance, and that's the answer for all of us I can't pay it. Good news. Somebody else did. I'm out. See ya. I'm going to go and live my life in a way that honors that person who paid my debt. I'm going to love people. I'm going to forgive people when they do me wrong because I did somebody else wrong, or I did them wrong. And that's grace. That's what Jesus gives. And that's what he gives to everybody. He doesn't even... it happens to people who are non-religious, who don't even know his name. That's where the beautiful attributes of God are made manifest to every bit of his creation from ever. And we see it in nature. I'm out here at a mountain bike race, a state championship for my kids, and anyway, and I'm seeing all this beautiful love of God shown to me everywhere. Like, look at this, and I don't deserve any of it. And we don't deserve, and that's, I didn't learn that through religion. I learned it through everything else, and God also gave me specific, foundational, unmovable truth in Scripture that tells me how all this works. It tells me how the grace is real. I know about Jesus, so I don't have to be like Lance Armstrong, wondering where I can turn for somebody to. I'm not saying Lance Armstrong doesn't, but like, he didn't have an answer for this accuser. I do, because I know who Jesus is. I know I'm enough, not because I've anything I did, but because of what he did. And just like I can confidently say, I have a wife, I can confidently say, I have a Savior who, and because I put my trust in him, I know that nobody has claim on me for anything. There is no more accuser that can say anything, because Jesus is enough. And to say anything less is to put me and what I do on the same side of the equation as what Jesus did, is to diminish what he did. Is to say, I helped. No, I didn't help. I didn't do anything. My works were filthy rags. That's what Isaiah says. When it comes to my salvation, they are filthy rags. But I will honor God by telling people about him. And we're all just beggars. Every person, we're all just beggars. And those of us who know who Jesus is and know what that means are beggars, telling other beggars where to find bread. Hope you all have a good day.